left the next morning, as she had said she would. She is visiting an aunt, like Achilles had told the court, his voice flat. If there were questions, no one dared to ask them. She would be gone until the child was born, and Achilles could be named the father. The weeks that passed now felt curiously suspended. Achilles and I spent as much time as possible away from the palace, and our joy, so explosive at reunion, had been replaced with impatience. We wanted to leave, to return to our lives on Pelion or in Thea. We felt furtive and guilty with the princess gone. The court's eyes on us had sharpened, grown uncomfortable, like Achilles frowned whenever he saw us. And then there was the war. Even here, in far-off, forgotten Skyros, news came of it. Helen's former suitors had honored their vow, and Agamemnon's army was rich with princely blood. It was said that he had done what no man before him could, united our fractious kingdoms with a common cause. I remembered him, a grim-faced shadow, shaggy as a bear. To my 9-year-old self, his brother Menelaus had been the much more memorable of the two, with his red hair and merry voice. But Agamemnon was older, his armies the larger. He would lead the expedition to Troy. It was morning and late winter, though it did not seem like it. So far south, the leaves did not fall and no frost pinched the morning air. We lingered on a rock cleft that looked over the span of the horizon, watching idly for ships or the grey flash of a dolphin back. We hurled pebbles from the cliff, leaning over to watch them skitter down the rock face. We were high enough that we could not hear the sound of them breaking on the rocks below.
Wish I had your mother's lyre.
Me too.
What is that?
I cannot tell. If it's a ship, there will be news.
It's a ship for certain. Not a trader.
Do you know the design? We watched the ship skirt the narrow mouth of Skyros' bay and beach itself on the ship's sandy shore. A rough-cut stone anchor was heaved overboard, the gangway lowered. We were too far to see much of the men beyond dark heads. We had stayed longer than we should have. Achilles stood and tucked his wind-loosened hair back beneath its kerchief. My hands busied themselves set with the folds of his dress, setting them more gracefully along his shoulders. When Achilles caught the expression in my eyes, he smiled.
Later.
Then he turned and went back down the path to the palace. He would go to the women's quarters and wait there amidst the looms and dresses until the messenger was gone. Hairline cracks of a headache were beginning behind my eyes. I went to the bedroom, cool and dark, and shut his bar in the midday sun and slept. A knock woke me. Come in.
It's rather too late for that. Sorry if I disturbed you.
It's all right.
I was hoping I might have a word with you. Do you mind if I sit?
No. His hands were calloused and rough, though they would not have looked out of place holding a plough, yet his manner spoke nobility. I could think of no reason that any man would want a moment of my time unless he had come to claim me for my oath. Who are you?
A good question. I've been very rude barging into a room like this. I'm one of the great King Agamemnon's captains. I travel the islands to speak to promising young men, such as yourself, about joining our army against Troy. Have you heard of the war?
Well, I have heard of it.
Good.
He smiled and stretched his feet out in front of him. The fading light fell on his legs, revealing a pink scar that seamed the brown flesh of his right calf from ankle to knee. Pink scar. My stomach dropped as if I had leaned over Skyros' highest cliff, with nothing beneath me but the long fall to the sea. He was older now, and larger, coming to the full flush of his strength. Odysseus. He said something, but I did not hear it. I was back in Tyndareus' hall, remembering his clever dark eyes that missed nothing. Did he know me? I stared at his face, but saw only a slightly puzzled expectation. He is waiting for an answer. I forced down my fear. I'm sorry, I did not hear you.
What? Are you interested in joining us to fight?
Well, I don't think you want me. I'm not a very good soldier.
Funny. No one seems to be when I come calling. What's your name?
Chironides.
Chironides. Well, Chironides, Agamemnon promises gold and honor for all who fight for him. It looks to be a short campaign. You could have it back home by next fall. I'll be here for a few days, and I hope you'll consider it.
That's it?
That's it. I assume I'll see you at dinner. You know, it's funny. I keep thinking that I've seen you before.
I don't recognize you.
I must have you confused with some other young man. You know what they say? The older you get, the less you remember. Well, who's your father? Maybe it's him that I know.
I am an exile.
I'm sorry to hear that. Where were you from?
The coast.
North or south?
South.
I would have sworn you were from the north, from somewhere around Thessaly, say, or Thea. You have the same roundness to your vowels that they do.
Take nothing.
Useless information is my curse, I'm afraid. Well, be sure to come and find me if you decide you want to join us, or if you know any other likely young men that I should speak to.
The dinner bell had rung. The corridors were busy with servants carrying platters and chairs. When I stepped into the hall, my visitor was already there, standing with Lycomedes and another man.
Chironides, this is Odysseus, ruler of Ithaca, one of Agamemnon's captains.
Thank goodness for hosts. I realized after I left that I didn't tell you my name.
And I did not ask because I knew. A bit of a mistake, but it was not irreparable. You're a king?
Actually, he's just the prince. I'm the king.
This is Lord Diomedes, king of Argos, another Odysseus' comrade.
And a suitor of Helen's, though I remember no more than his name. Lord?
Well, shall we sit? How is Ithaca?
Ithaca is well, thank you. I left my wife and son there, both in good health.
Ask him about his wife, Penelope. Lots to talk about her. Tell him how you met her. It's his favorite story.
Not now, my friend. Actually, Lycomedes, I was hoping for a glimpse of the famous dancers of your isle.
Yes, I had not thought, if you would.
Oh, we do. We do.
Well,
Lycomedes' eyes darkened between the two men. Thetis had ordered him to keep the women away from visitors, but to refuse would be suspicious.
let us call him then.
He gestured sharply to a servant who turned and ran to the hall. I kept my eyes on my plate so they would not see the fear in my face. The women had been surprised by the summons and were still making small adjustments of clothes and hair as they entered the hall. Achilles was among them, his head carefully covered, his gaze modestly down. My eyes went anxiously to Odysseus and Diomedes, but neither even glanced at them.
We are truly honored by your performance. Not everyone can say they have seen the dances of Skyros. As tokens of our admiration, we have brought gifts for you and your king.
A murmur of excitement. Luxuries did not come often to Skyros. No one here had the money to buy them.
You are too kind.
Achilles' face was flushed with genuine pleasure. He had not expected this generosity. Odysseus had brought forth a trunk and had unloaded it on a long table. I saw the glitter of silver, the shine of glass and gems. All of us, men and women both, leaned towards the eager to see.
Please, take what you would like.
The girls moved swiftly to the tables, and I watched them fingering the bright trinkets. Perfumes in delicate glass bottles stoppered with a bit of wax. Mirrors with carved ivory for hands, bracelets of twisted gold, ribbons dyed deep in purples and reds. Among these were a few things I assumed were meant for Achilles in his countenance. Leather-bound shields, carved spear halves, and silvered swords with supple kid-skin sheaths. Achilles' eyes had caught on one of these like a fish snagged by a line. Odysseus stood near, presiding benevolently. Achilles kept at the back, drifting slowly along the table. He paused to dab some perfume on his slender wrist, stroked the smooth handle of a mirror. He lingered a moment over a pair of earrings, blue stones set in silver wire. A movement at the far end of the hall caught my eye. Diomedes had crossed the chamber and was speaking to one of his servants, who nodded and left through the large double doors. Whatever it was could not be important. Diomedes seemed half asleep, his eyes heavy-lidded and broad. Suddenly a trumpet blew, loud and panic. It came from outside, a sustained note followed by 3 short blasts. Our utmost impending disaster. The girls screamed and clung to each other, dropping their treasures to the ground in tinkles of breaking glass. All girls but one. Before the final blast was finished, Achilles had swept up one of the silver swords and flung off its kidskin sheath. The table blocked his path to the door. He leapt it in a blur, his other hand grabbing a spear from it as he passed. He landed and the weapons were already lifted, held with a deadly poise that was like no girl nor no man either. The greatest warrior of our generation.
Greetings, Prince Achilles. We've been looking for you.
Lord Odysseus, Lord Diomedes, I'm honored to be the subject of so much effort. I assume you wish to speak with me. Give me a moment and I'll join you.
Archimedes, may we borrow this room, please? We have much to discuss with the Principia.
Archimedes.
Yes, we'll go.
Thank you. Oh, Patroclus! You may stay if you wish. We have business with you as well.
It was a trick.
You were clever in hiding yourself. We had to be clever still in finding you.
Well, you found me. Now what do you want?
We want you to come to Troy.
And if I do not want to go?
We make this known.
Achilles flushed as if he'd been struck. It was one thing to wear a dress out of necessity, and another thing entirely for the world to know about it. Our people reserved the ugliest names for men who acted like women. Lives were lost over such insults.
We're all noble men here, need not come to such measures. I hope we can offer you happier reasons to agree. Fame, for instance. You'll win much of it if you fight for us.
There will be other wars.
Not like this one. This will be the greatest war of our generation, remembered in songs and legends for ages. You're a fool not to see it.
I see nothing but a coupled husband and Agamemnon to read.
Then you are blind. What can be more heroic than to fight for the honor of the most beautiful woman in the world against the greatest city of the East? Perseus cannot say he did so much, nor Jason. Heracles would kill his wife again for the chance to come with us. We will conquer Anatolia all the way to Araby and carve ourselves into stories for all time.
I thought you said it would be an easy campaign, run by next fall.
I lied. I don't know how long it will be. Faster if we have you. The sons of Troy are known for their skill in battle. Their deaths will lift your name to the stars. If you miss it, you miss your chance at immortality. To stay behind unknown and grow old, and older in obscurity.
You cannot know that.
Actually, I can. I'm fortunate to have some knowledge of the gods, and they've seen fit to share with me a prophecy about you.
I should have known that Odysseus would not come with tawdry blackmail as his only coin. The stories named him Poluptros, the man of many turnings. Fear stirred in me like ash.
What prophecy?
But if you do not come to Troy, your godhead will wither in you unused. Your strength will diminish. At best, you'll end up like Achilles here, moldering on some forgotten island with only daughters to succeed him. Skyros to be conquered soon by a nearby state. You know this as well as I. Do not kill him. Why should they? He can live out his years in some corner, eating the bread they soften for him, senile and alone. When he dies, the people will say, who?
The words filled the room, thinning the air until we could not breathe. Such life was a horror.
He's known now only for how his story touches yours. If you go to Troy, your fame will be so great that a man will be written into eternal legend just having passed a cup to you. You will be...
In the furious line splinters, Thetis stood in the doorway, hot as living flame. Her divinity swept over us all, singeing our eyes, blackening the rugged edges of the door. I could feel it pulling at my bones, sucking the blood in my veins as if it would drink me. I cowered, as men were made to do.
Greetings, Thetis.
Her gaze went to him as a snake's to her prey, and her skin glowed. The air around Odysseus seemed to tremble slightly as if the heat or a breeze. Diomedes on the ground edged away. I closed my eyes so I would not have to see the explosion. A silence, into which at last I opened my eyes. Odysseus stood unharmed. Thetis' fist was strangling himself. White, it no longer burned to look at her.
The gray-eyed maiden has ever been kind to me. She knows why I'm here, and she blesses and guards my purpose.
It was as if I had missed a step of their conversation. I struggled now to follow. The grey-eyed maiden, goddess of war and its arts. She was said to prize cleverness above all.
Athena has no child to lose.
Ask her. Ask your mother what she knows.
Is it true? What he says? The last of her fire is gone. Only marble remained.
It is true. But there is more and worse that he has not said. If you go to Troy, you will never return. You will die a young man there.
It is certain. This is what all mortals ask first. In disbelief, shock, fear. Is there no exception for me?
It is certain.
He had looked at me then, I would have broken. I would have begun to weep. I never stopped, but his eyes were fixed on his mother. What should I do?
Do not ask me to choose.
I cannot remember what we said to the two men. How we left them. Or how we came into our room. I remember his face. Skin drawn tightly over his cheeks, the dulled pallor of his brow. His shoulders, usually so straight and fine, seemed forward. Grief swelled inside me, choking me. His death, I felt as if I was dying just to think of it, plummeting through a blind, black sky. You must not go. I almost said it 1,000 times. Instead, I held his hands fast between mine. They were cold and very still. I do not think I could bear it. His eyes were closed as if against horrors. I knew he spoke not of his death, but of the nightmare Odysseus had spun, the loss of his brilliance, the withering of his grace. I had seen the joy he took in his own skill, the roaring vitality that was always just beneath the surface. Who was he, if not miraculous and radiant? Who was he, if not destined to fame? I would not care. Whatever you became, it would not matter to me. We would still be together. I know. He knew. But it was not enough. The sorrow was so large it threatened to tear through my skin. When he died, all things swift and beautiful and bright would be buried with him. I opened my mouth, but it was too late.
I will go. I will go to Troy.
The rosy gleam of his lip, the fevered green of his eyes. There was no line anywhere on his face, nothing creased or graying, all crisp. He was spring, golden and bright. Envious death would drink his blood and grow young again. He was watching me, his eyes deep as the earth.
Will you come with me?
The never-ending ache of one sorrow. Perhaps in some other life I could have refused, could have torn my hair out and screamed and made him face his choice alone. But not this one. He would sail to Troy and I would follow, even into death. Yes. Yes. Relief broke in his face, and he reached for me. I let him hold me, let him press us length to length so close that nothing might sit between us. Tears came and fell. Above us, the constellations spun and the moon paced her weary course. He lay stricken and sleepless as the hours passed. When dawn came, he rose stiffly.
We must go.
He was pale, and his eyes were shadowed. He looked old already. Panic rose in me, and "Don't go," I wanted to say, but he drew on a tunic and was gone, off to see his mother. I lay back and tried not to think of the minutes passing. Just yesterday we had had a wealth of them. Now each was a drop of heart's blood lost. The room turned grey. The bed felt cold without him and too large. I heard no sounds, and the stillness struck me. It is like a tomb. I rose and rubbed my limbs, slapped them awake, trying to ward off a rising hysteria. This is what it will be, every day without him. I felt a wild-eyed tightness in my chest, like a scream, every day without him. I left the palace, desperate to shut out the thought. I came to the cliffs, described as great rocks that beetled over the sea and began to climb. The winds tugged at me, and the stones were slimy with spray, but the strain and danger steadied me. I arrowed upwards towards the most treacherous peak, where before I would have been too fearful to go. My hands were cut almost to blood by jagged shards of rock. My feet left stains where they stepped. The pain was welcome, ordinary, and clean, so easy to bear it was laughable. I reached the summit, a careless heap of boulders at the cliff's edge, and stood. An idea had come to me as I climbed, fierce and reckless as I felt. Fetus! Fetus!
Do not speak my name again. You are a fool. Get down. Your half-wit death will not save him.
How much longer will you live?
Ha! Why? Will you try to stop it? Prepare yourself for it?
Contempt spilled across her face. Yes, if I can.
Hector's death will be first. That is all I can do tonight.
Thank you.
Do not presume to thank me. I have come for another reason. It will not be so easy as he thinks. And the fates promise fame, but how much? He will need to guard his honor carefully. He is too trusting. The men of Greece are dogs over a bone. They will not simply give up preeminence to another. I will do what I can. And you will not disgrace him, do you understand?
Do you understand? Yes. I did. His fame must be worth the life he paid for it. The faintest breath of air touched her Grace's hand, and I knew she was about to leave to vanish back to the caves of the sea. Something made me go. Is Hector a skilled soldier?
He is the best. But for my son.
Her gaze flickered to the right where the cliff dropped away.
He is coming.
Achilles crested the rise and came to where I sat. He looked at my face and my bloodied skin. I heard you talking.
It was your mother. She told you the rest of the prophecy. She did. You must not kill Hector. She told you I must kill Hector? Yes. And you wish to steal time from the fates? Yes. Well, I see no reason to kill him. He's done nothing to me. The first time, then, I felt a kind of hope. We left that afternoon. There was no reason to linger. Every beautiful castle, like Achilles, came to bid us farewell. The three of us stood together stiffly. Odysseus and Diomedes had gone ahead to the ship. They would escort us back to Theo, where Achilles would muster his own troops. There was one more thing to be done here, and I knew Achilles did not wish to do it. Diomedes, my mother has asked me to convey her desires to you.
It is about the child.
It is.
And what does she wish?
She wishes to raise him herself. The child will be a boy. And when he is weaned, she will come claim him.
I wish you would never come.
I'm sorry.
Leave me.
Tightly made and well-manned. The crew moved with a competent fleetness. Ropes gleamed with new fibers, and the masts seemed fresh as living trees. The prow piece was a beauty, the finest I had ever seen. A woman, tall with dark hair and eyes, her hands clasped in front of her as if in contemplation. She was beautiful, but quietly so. An elegant jaw, and upswept hair showing a slender neck. She had been lovingly painted, each dark little light was perfectly rendered.
You admire my wife, I see. She refused at first, wouldn't let the artist near her. I had to have him follow her in secret. I think it turned out rather well, actually.
A marriage for love, rare as cedars from the east. It almost made you want to like him, but I had seen his smiles too often now.
What is her name?
Penelope.
Is the ship new? If he wanted to speak of his wife, I wanted to speak of something else.
Very. Every last timber of it from the finest wood Ithaca has.
Bragging about your new ship again, huh?
I am. The king of Argos is unusually eloquent today. Tell me, do you think such quick wit comes from your father having eaten that man's brains?
What?
You don't know the tale of mighty Tydeus, king of Argos, eater of brains?
I've heard of him, but not of the brains.
I was thinking of having the scene painted on our plates.
Remind me not to dine in Argos anytime soon.
Diomedes laughed. Ha! It was not a pleasant sound. The kings were inclined to talk and lingered by the rail with us. They passed stories back and forth of other sea voyages, of wars, of contests won and games long past. Achilles was an eager audience with question after question. I watched him hang on the other man's words. He is too trusting. But I would not be a raven on his shoulder all the time predicting gloom. The sun slid lower in the sky, and we drew close to the dark shadow of land where we would make camp. The ship found the harbour, and the sailors drew her off from the shore for the night. Supplies were unloaded, food and bedding, and tents for the princes. We stood by the campsite that had been laid for us, a small fire and pavilion.
Is all well here?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. One tent's enough, I hope. I've heard you prefer to share. Rooms and bedrolls both, they say. Come now, there's no need for shame. It's a common enough thing among boys. But you're not really boys any longer. How old are you?
It's not true.
True is what men believe, and they believe this of you. Perhaps they're mistaken. If the rumor concerns you, then leave it behind when you sail to war.
It is no business of yours, Prince of Ithaca.
My apologies if I've offended. I merely came to wish you both good night and make sure all is satisfactory. Prince Achilles, Patroclus.
Inside the tent, there was a quietness between us. I had wondered when this would come. As Odysseus said, many boys took each other for lovers, but such things were given up as they grew older, unless it was with slaves or hired boys. Our men liked conquest. They did not trust a man who had been conquered himself. Do not disgrace him, the goddess had said, and this is some of what she meant. Perhaps he is right.
You do not think that.
I do not mean I would still be with you, but I can sleep outside, so it would not be so obvious. I do not need to attend your councils. I can.
No, the Phoenicians will not care, and the others can talk all they like. I will still be Aristosachian.
Best of the Greeks. Your honor could be darkened by it.
Then it is darkened. They are fools if they let my glory rise or fall on this.
Oh, but Odysseus is
Patroclus, I have given enough to them. I will not give them this.
After that, there's nothing more to say. The next day, with the sun wind caught in our sails, we found Odysseus by the prow.
Prince of Ithaca, I wish to hear of Agamemnon and the other kings. I should know the men I am to join and the princes I am to fight.
Very wise, Prince Achilles. Where to begin? There's Menelaus' wife we go to retrieve, after Helen picked him for her husband. Patroclus can tell you about that. He became king of Sparta. He's known as a good man, fearless in battle and well-liked in the world. Many kings have rallied to his cause, and not just those bound to their oaths.
And the Trojans?
Priam, of course, king. The man is said to have 50 sons, all raised with a sword in their hands.
50 sons? And what about Hector?
Priam's oldest son and heir, favorite of the god Apollo, Troy's mightiest defender.
What does he look like?
They say he's large, but that's said of most heroes. I'm not sure. You'll have to tell me. You'll meet him before I do.
Well, why do you say that?
As I'm sure Diomedes would agree. I am a competent soldier, but no more. My talents lie elsewhere. If I were to meet Hector in battle, I would not be bringing back news of him. You, of course, are a different matter. You'll win your greatest pain from his death.
I see no reason to kill him. He's done nothing to me.
If every soldier killed only those who would personally run him, there would be no wars. Maybe that's not a bad idea. In that world, perhaps I would be Aristosachian instead of you.
You have told me nothing of Agamemnon.
Ah, yes. Our mighty king of Mycenae, proud scion of the house of Atreus. His great-grandfather Tenus was a son of Zeus. We are fortunate to have him as our general.
We are each generals.
True, but we are all going to fight the same enemy, are we not? 24 generals on one battlefield would be chaos and defeat. You know how well we all get along. We probably end up killing each other instead of the Trojans. Success in a war such as this comes only with men sewn to a single purpose, funneled to a single spear thrust rather than 1,000 needle pricks. You lead the Athenians, and I the Ithacans, but someone must use us each to our abilities, however great they may be.
I will take Agamemnon's counsel, but not his orders. I will have you know that.
Gods, save us from ourselves. Not even in battle yet, and already worried over us.
No, I am not.
Believe me, Agamemnon knows your great worth to his cause. It was he who first wished you to come. You'll be welcome to the army with all the pomp you could desire.
It was not what Achilles had meant exactly, but it was close enough. Later, Achilles sleeps next to me. A storm has come, and everything trembles with its force. I hear the stinging slap over and over of waves approaching the boat. He stirs, and the air stirs with him, bearing the musk, sweet smell of his body. I think this is what I will miss. I think I will kill myself rather than miss it. I think, how long do we have?
you see that?
What?
The shore. It looks strange.
As we drew closer, we saw why. It was thick with people, jostling impatiently, craning their necks towards us, and the sound! At first it seemed to come from the waves or the ship as it cut them, a rushing roar, but it grew louder with each stroke of our oars until we understood that it was voices, then words. Over and over it came, Prince Achilles, Aristos Achaion! As our ship touched the beach, hundreds of hands threw themselves into the air and hundreds of throats opened into a cheer. All other noises, the will of the gangplank banging down on rock, the sailors' commands were lost to it. We stared in shock. It was at that moment, perhaps, that our lives changed. Not before in Skyros, or before that still appealing, but here, as we began to understand the grandness, now and always, that would follow him wherever he went. He had chosen to become a legend, and this was the beginning. He hesitated. And I touched my hand to his, but I could not see it. Come, they are waiting for me. Achilles stepped forward onto the gangplank, his arm lifted in greeting. The crowd screamed itself hoarse. I half feared they would swarm onto the ship, but soldiers pushed forward and lined the gangway, making a path straight through the brush. Achilles turned back to me and said something. I could not hear it, but I understood. Come with me. I nodded, and we began to walk. On either side of us, the crowd surged against the soldiers' barrier. At the aisle's end was Peleus, waiting for us. His face was wet, and he made no attempt to wipe aside the tears. He drew Achilles to him, held him long before he let go.
Our prince has returned! Before all, I welcome my most beloved son, sole heir to my kingdom. He will lead you to Troy in glory and return you home in triumph.
Even there, beneath the bright sun, I felt my skin go cold. He will not come home at all. But Peleus did not know this yet.
Man-grown, God-born, Aristosachion!
There was no time to think of it now. The soldiers were beating on their shields with their spears. The women screamed, the men howled. I caught sight of Achilles' face. The look at him was stunned but not displeased. He was standing differently, I noticed, shoulders back and legs braced. He looked older somehow, taller even. He leaned over to say something in his father's ear, but I could not hear what he had said. Inside the palace, attendants and servants buzzed around us. We were given a moment to eat and drink what was pressed into our hands. Then we were led to the palace courtyard, where 2,500 men waited for us. At our approach, they lifted their square shields, shining like carapace, into salute to their new general. This, out of all of it, was perhaps the strangest. He was their commander now. He would be expected to know them all, their names and their armors and their stories. He no longer belongs to me alone. Nervous, even I could not tell. I watched as he greeted them, spoke ringing words that made them stand up straighter. They grinned, loving every inch of their miraculous general. His gleaming hair, his deadly hands, his nimble feet, they leaned towards him like flowers to the sun, drinking in his luster. It was as Odysseus had said, that he had light enough to make heroes of them all. We were never alone. Achilles was always needed for something, his eye on draft sheets and figures, his advice for food supplies and levy lists. Phoenix, his father's old counselor, would be accompanying us, but there were still 1,000 questions for Achilles to answer. How many? How much? Who will be your captains? He knew I had little to do here.
His face when he turned to me was increasingly apologetic. He was always sure to place the tablets where I could see them too, to ask my opinion, but I did not make it easy for him, standing in the back, listless and silent. Even then, I could not escape. Through every window came a constant clatter of soldiers ragging and drilling and sharpening their spears. The myrmidons, they had begun calling themselves, Ant-Men, an old nickname of honor. I watched them marching, rank on cheerful rank. I saw them dreaming of the plunder they would bring home and the triumph. There was no such dream for us. I began to slip away. I would find a reason to linger behind as the attendants ushered him forward, an itch or a loose strap of my shoe. Oblivious, they hurried on, turned the corner, and left me suddenly, blessedly alone. I took the twisting corridors I had learned so many years ago and came gracefully to our room. There, I lay on the cool stone of the floor and closed my eyes. I could not stop imagining how it would end, spear tip or sword point or smashed by a chariot, the rushing, unending blood at his heart. One night in the second week, I asked him, "How will you tell your father about prophecy?"
I do not think I will.
Never?
There's nothing he can do. It'll bring him nothing but grief.
What about your mother? Won't she tell him?
No. It was one of the things I had made her promise me that last day on Skyros.
What were the other things?
I asked her to protect you. After.
What did she say?
She said no.
Later, when he slept, I lay wakeful and watching under the stars, and I thought of this. Knowing that he had asked warmed me. It chased away some of the coldness of the days here in the palace when he was wanted every moment and I was not. As for the goddess's answer, I did not care. I would have no need of her. I did not plan to live after he was gone. Our ship was a beauty, finer even than Odysseus's, sleek and slim as knife point, meant to cut the sea. It rode low in the water, heavy with stores of food and supplies. And that was only the flagship. Beside it, 49 others, a city of wood, rolled gently in the waters of Thea's harbour. Their bright prow pieces were a bestiary of animals and nymphs and creatures half in between. Their masts stood tall as the trees they had once been. At the front of each of these ships, one of our newly minted captains stood at attention, saluting as we walked up the ramp to our vessel. Achilles went first, his purple cloak stirring in the breeze from the sea. And then me, with a new cloak of my own. The people cheered for us and for our soldiers, firing onto their own ships. All around us, final promises were shouted, of glory, of the gold that would be stripped and brought home from Priam's rich city. Peleus stood at the shrore's edge, one hand raised in farewell. True to his word, Achilles had not told him the prophecy, merely hugged him tightly as if to soak the old man into his skin. I had embraced him too, those thin, wiry limbs. I thought, this is what Achilles will feel like when he was old. And then I remembered he will never be old. The ship's boards were still sticky with new resin. We leaned over the railing to wave our last farewell, the sun-warm wood pressed against our bellies. The sailors heaved up the anchor, square and chalky with barnacles. Then took their seats at the oars that fringed the boat like eyelashes waiting for the captain. The drums began to beat.
oars lifted and fell, taking us to Troy.